I'm a bit late to the party, but last month, MaXXXine, the last film in the X trilogy, dropped in theaters, so here's my ranking of all 3 films in the X trilogy. Hi, my name is Nathan, and I talk about a lot of movies on this channel. If you're new here, down below in the comment section, share your ranking of the X trilogy over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now, or not right now, but once this video is over. If you're just wondering why I haven't been posting as much content lately, it's simply because my life just got really crazy within the past couple weeks. There's some things I needed to deal with school restarting and everything. Because if you don't know, like, my school just restarted, so I'm in 10th grade now. But even beyond that, there were just a bunch of things I had to deal with my own personal life. And there will be more of that in the upcoming future that I'm still trying to, deal with. So I haven't been posting as much lately, but I think I'm gonna start to post out some more content now and catch up on some movies. One of them being MaXXXine, and therefore I did watch this trilogy, and I decided to just sit down and do a ranking of these movies. So with that said, let's just get straight into the ranking. In last place is X. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably love this film. Last I checked on Rotten Tomatoes, it had a 94%. As for me, I watched this movie for the first time about 6 months ago, and so I didn't watch it when it first came out in the theater or anything like that. By the time it came out, I was probably too young to see it anyways. And having seen the other 2 films in this trilogy, there are some positive things I could say about this movie. For one, it's the most tense of the trilogy, I would say, where it has a lot more tense and edgier sequences, more so than Pearl and MaXXXine do. And I think of the 3 films, it also has probably the best kills and gore that this trilogy of franchise now has to offer. I think this one has the goriest, most standout kills of the 3 films. All that said, I can't really get into the rest of the movie. I mean, it's fine. I wouldn't go negative on it or anything like that. But the subject matter about a group of teenagers going out to shoot porn didn't connect with me in any sort of meaningful way, and it was just kind of uncomfortable for me to watch in certain sequences. The characters aren't interesting or likable enough for me to care enough about what happens to them later on in the movie when they do get killed off. And those are the 2 real, vital pieces of the movie that I just simply couldn't get into. And that just knocks this movie back, because if it was just teenagers being teenagers, cabin in the woods kind of story where old people are slashers, I had a lot of fun with the second half of the film. But for the first half, when they're kind of just shooting a porno, I simply couldn't get into it, and the characters simply weren't as likable. So unfortunately, while this one did have a lot of things I did like about it, overall, it's not one that I will gravitate towards to rewatch anytime soon. Our runner-up, MaXXXine, the conclusion to the X trilogy, and right off the gate, what I think this movie is more enjoyable than the movie X, but also makes a bunch of flaws on its own. And so it's not much better than X, but I do find it a little bit more enjoyable because the subject matter of making porn isn't as prominent in this film, and therefore I found it a lot more watchable. The movie has a very distinct setting, which I really enjoyed. It's set in 1985 Hollywood, and that just gave the movie a nice new vibe than the previous 2 films. What I enjoy about this trilogy is that in all the 3 films, they each have a different flavor to them. Pearl is more paying homage to not silent films, but old 50s to 30s films. We'll get more into Pearl later on in this video. MaXXXine feels like an 80s slasher whodunit. X is a 70s stag film, but also kind of a slasher. And that's what I really enjoy, is that they're setting these different time periods while also feeling like they came out in those time periods. So, with the distinct setting and time period in 1985 Hollywood, I kind of just got a nice little kick out of it, especially in the Universal Studios stuff. As somebody who's been to Universal Studios several times, as somebody who lives in California, I had fun with like the sight gags and everything and the setting of this film. I feel like of the three films, surprisingly, this one is probably the one with the most themes about kind of following dreams, achieving what you've always wanted to achieve. And it's a very simple message, but it's a nice one to add, especially in a thriller whodunit like this one. You know, but for me, this movie also makes a bunch of missteps on its own. Where the story, the whodunit thriller aspect was just unbelievably predictable from the very beginning. You already know who the killer is. It doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to know who the killer is of this movie. And the plot also feels very sidelined. The whole whodunit plot, it's kind of sidelined for our lead character MaXXXine trying to get into Hollywood. And it feels just very, like, I don't know, undercooked. Like, it wasn't developed enough. So when you do get the reveal and the big action finale that happens in this film, it doesn't feel as earned because it feels like an undercooked plot. And so if they had focused on that a little bit more, this one, I might have liked this one even more. And so it's really frustrating because it had things that I really liked about it, just like I said with X, but it also makes a bunch of mistakes in the story. So comparing X and MaXXXine, X probably is not the more rewatchable one because of the subject matter, and MaXXXine I think has the weaker story, but I'm placing this one over X at this moment because of the subject matter of X I just simply couldn't get into. But there's still two very flawed films. One that I wouldn't say are bad, but they're very flawed. But in first place, easily for me, is Pearl, a shockingly good prequel to this trilogy of films. This is a film I didn't know much about going into it. I didn't even know the movie X was getting a prequel even when it came out until I did some research and there was a prequel to this one. So I checked it out and it ended up, for me, of these three films, standing out as easily the one I got the most enjoyment out of, and the one that I can find myself going back to more so than the other two films. A big part of why this movie works is that it applies the Joker bag of tricks to the lead character of this film. What I mean by that is Joker was a film about sort of a character trying to find his confidence and descending into madness, and that's exactly what this movie is. You get our lead character Pearl, played by Mia Goth again, who tries to go on this journey of becoming a star, becoming famous, and descends into sort of a horrible, maniacal psychopath, but in a way where you could feel sympathetic for a legitimate psychopath. And so it takes, like I said, the Joker bag of tricks, applies it to here, and I think it really works. But what also really works about this movie is that it adds its own little flavor to it. Like I said when talking about MaXXXine, this movie also has a distinct flair of a time period where it's supposed to be set in, which is like, I don't know exactly when, I don't remember exactly when, but I think it was like the 30s or the 50s, and it really does feel like, with the set design, the color scheme, the costumes and everything, that it might have been made back in the 30s to 50s era. And Mia Goth, I would say, in this film, gives out her best performance of the ones in three films. Especially, there was a scene in the film, it's near the end, where she's sitting at a table and talking to her friend, and it's this one shot of her just performing, of her acting and talking to her friend for about 8 minutes. Like, it was so... And it's... You could just buy into the performance, you feel bad for the character, but also, there's this weird feeling where you feel bad for the character when she's a legitimate psychopath. And it builds this, like, complex feeling inside you where you're not sure if you're rooting for this character anymore by the end of it. I just thought it was really well done. It's the most interesting of the 3 films to me. It's the one I find myself going back to. So, for me, easily in first place is Pearl. There you have it. That's my ranking of the X Trilogy. Down below in the comment section, share your ranking of the X Trilogy over on my channel. I have more content like this. Check those out right now. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to the end. I will see you in the next one.